So hello everybody, UXW Bill here again with another stereo equipment video. I know, I have a bit of a fascination, don't I? Well, I make videos about the things that are interesting to me, and right now stereo equipment is what I've been talking about because I've been going through and acquiring pieces that need repair or even finding things in my own collection that really ought to be fixed. Anyway, what this is a Penney MCS 2230 AM/FM stereo system. Now when you think Penney, you probably don't think hi-fi, you probably think more along the lines of no-fi. But this thing is really not bad at all in a lot of ways. In fact, I think it's a lot of it is all the stereo that someone in the average home would ever need, and it was probably entirely passable when it was sold. Sears sold a very similar set, probably built by the same OEM under their LXI brand name, although it has a different color scheme and different looking buttons and displays. Its color scheme is actually a bluish gray with silver trim, and its displays and buttons are green and blue, whereas this thing has kind of a light blue fluorescent display and mostly red LED indicators. Anyway, I came across this thing about 9 years ago when I started going to that vintage audio equipment sale to benefit public radio and television. I've had it ever since then, and at the time I went to the trouble of putting a new turntable stylus on it. The cartridge is original. It's a Shure M92E, but the stylus is brand new because the stylus was bad when I bought it. I used it for about 2 years after I got it, and then the turntable belt broke and it sat. Well, it sat in my bedroom, and it was forgotten there until I recently started to decide to remodel my bedroom. So I dug this thing out, and I decided, well, why don't I remodel it too, because I really liked it when it worked. So one of the first things that I've gotten for it so far is a new turntable belt, so the turntable works again. You'll notice that the turntable is actually a linear tracking turntable, which is surprisingly nice for a piece of equipment like this. The Sears turntable is actually just a semi-automatic one. You have to start it yourself and cue the tone arm yourself, and then it automatically shuts off when it's done playing, whereas this one does everything automatically. Anyway, based on dates that I found inside this thing, I think it was built sometime between 1984 and 85. It really doesn't look terribly dated for being as old as it is, if that's how old it is. Interestingly, it does not have a discrete power amplifier in it. It uses one of those Sanyo STK modules. I believe it was an STK 4151 Series 2 as its power amplifier. Now, it doesn't have outboard DC protection, so at least in theory it could be hazardous to speakers if something went wrong. But when I was playing it, I played it pretty hard more than once, and it always held up to it very well. Never noticed any trouble with it whatsoever. Anyway, on to an exploration of it in detail, each component here. I start out with the tape deck, and the tape deck is pretty much what you would expect, except it has what I would call a partial logic feature. It's manually operated, but you'll notice these buttons down here that say RSS, or Random Search System. Well, what that does, when you press the RSS button over here, there's 3 lights, 1, 2, and 3. If you press fast forward or rewind, it will skip automatically the number of songs that are indicated by the light, and then it'll resume normal playback. Now, the tape deck was working when I got it, but right now it's suffering from a flabby belt that fell off the pulleys, so I've got a new belt on the way, and I'll fix that, although it doesn't look like a lot of fun. Then you have the audio section. You've got a 5-band graphical equalizer, 60 Hertz, 250 Hertz, 1 kilohertz, 4.5 kilohertz, and 12 kilohertz. You have your set of inputs, AM, FM, phono, tape, 2 auxiliaries, a loudness switch, balance and volume, and a high and low filter for your tapes and turntable records. It'll drive up to 2 sets of stereo speakers. I didn't get the original Penney issue speakers with that one, so I'm actually playing it into the single Technics SB-L55 speaker that I found on the curb recently, which works. Probably a much better speaker than what Penney's provided with this thing when it was new. I'd like to find another one. I only found one, and they would look good paired with this stereo receiver. Anyway, up top here is the tuner. It's a digital tuner with a signal strength indicator, a tuned and FM stereo indicator, 6 memories, tuning buttons that can operate in manual or automatic mode, and then the turntable. The turntable is, of course, a linear tracking table There's stop and start buttons, a queuing button, repeat button, speed 33 or 45, and disc size 7 or 12 inch. So it'll play 45 RPM singles as well as conventional 33 1/3 RPM records. The stop and start buttons actually work to cue the needle back and forth when the queuing has the cartridge and the stylus lifted up. Anyway, let's see how it plays here. Just turn the power on. And it starts right up and initializes itself. And there's the AM tuner.
U.S. Senate seat. And the board president of the Champaign Park District voted down last night.
There's the FM tuner. And it's got memory presets.
Decision to place a new marquee on the Virginia Theater.
And now for the turntable. Like I said, the tape deck doesn't presently work, but the turntable has a brand new belt on it. So I'll just start that right up here. And it's always surged to life like that. I have no idea why. And here comes the stylus. The controls on this thing are dirty. That's part of my restoration project. But you can actually see how I'm queuing the record here. It has 2 queuing speeds. Again, the switch isn't very clean, so it's not making good contact. Gets plenty loud. And then when you tell it to stop, the record spins down and it slows to a stop. Got a nice little glass lid on it. The one door is missing because it needs some repairs. The glass isn't broken, but this little cover plate and metal thing here that attaches to these magnets, which both seem to be demagnetized, that thing fell off, and so I need to figure out a good way of fixing it. And of course the cassette deck is waiting for a belt. Anyway, around back we have a high-end FM antenna made out of a wire coil that I stole from the Keykeeper's workbench. They have 2 sets of speaker connections. One is a little bit broken. I think I backed it into the wall once and broke the plastic holder off, but it's nothing a little super glue shouldn't be able to fix. So I'm using the B set of speaker connectors. It doesn't have an outboard protection relay, but it does at least have a set of fuses, and it says to replace them with 3 amp fuses only. I expect there was a little cover on there at one time, but I don't have it. There's the compact stereo AM FM radio phonograph and tape, distributed by J.C. Penney Company and made in Taiwan. I'd love to know by who. Now, Panasonic made some of the Penney's MCS gear, and some of that stuff is really highly regarded, but I don't think Panasonic built this. Anyway, there's your 2 auxiliary inputs, and that pretty well rounds it out. It's a nice little stereo receiver. It's certainly a good-looking piece of equipment, and it'll look even better once I'm done cleaning it up. And the space in the bottom is actually for storing your turntable records, although if you had an auxiliary piece of audio equipment and it happened to fit under there, you could probably put it in there and sneak the cords out the back panel, because the unit does separate into 2 pieces. And if you didn't mind modifying it a little bit, you could run the cords out there effortlessly and it'd look built in. I just felt that this was worthwhile to make a video about, because although I've seen several of the Sears ones in varying degrees of repair, my grandparents have one that works like brand new. Most of the others I've seen are broken, typically with tape deck problems. I've never seen another one of these MCS 2230 units. I don't know how common or popular they were, but in 9 years this is the only one that I have ever seen, and I just thought that I might share it with you. So thank you for watching.